Hello, my name is Hannah Capon. I am Director of Canine Arthritis Management. This is a veterinary-driven initiative to raise awareness and improve the management of dogs with arthritis. I'm glad you're here with us today. We are at the beginning of an 8-module series, an owner's approach to managing their dog's arthritis, all the nitty-gritty. So sit back and relax. As said, there'll be 8 modules and this is the first. So what we do need to establish is that you've signed up for this course for a reason, and you need to be honest. What do you want to know? There is a huge amount of information regarding arthritis management in dogs, and I just want to take this opportunity to make you stop and think about the questions that you have with regards to managing this disease. We have a very busy social media part of our organisation, and it allows us to do polls. Currently we have 12,000 followers and they are very, very interactive. We recently put out a poll asking people, what do they want to know? What do they need to know? And these were the things that we were told. They want to know when the signs that an intervention is working. They wanted more education regarding the disease. They wanted to know what to expect and how to slow the progression of the disease. They wanted nitty-gritty advice about exercise, post-op advice, how complementary therapies work, how the pain meds work, how to give them, how long for, and what their side effects are. Were there other pain meds that they could add to what they already have? And another category that came up was young dogs diagnosed with arthritis early in their life. What can be done? When we looked at all the replies from the followers, we realised that there was a lot underlying that needed to be answered. There was a lot of confusion, a lack of understanding regarding the disease. Many of the owners were worried that their dogs were in pain and they weren't managing it appropriately. Many owners were worried about costs and the future. All owners wanted to do their best, but many weren't sure if what they were doing was working. Regularly, we have messages of owners being overwhelmed or feeling guilt, but all wanted a more structured approach to how to manage that disease so that they could be happy at the end of the day that they'd ticked all the boxes that they were capable of ticking. What was really, really obvious is that owners wanted to know that a diagnosis of osteoarthritis is not the end and that their dog's life could still be full. They wanted also to be listened to, their stories, how they were managing, and they wanted an approach that was more tailored to their situation. So I hope in this 8-module course that we will be able to deliver this to you. One thing that people really, really overlook is it's very hard to watch a dog grow old. It's very difficult to decipher what is aging from disease. So hopefully by the end of this course, we will help you feel a lot more confident with how you're managing your dog in your life, in your home. So in module 1, what are we going to do? So we're going to discuss what is arthritis and what's the fuss. So before we do that, I just want to tackle what is the fuss and refer to a paper by the marvellous Zoe Belshaw. This is her PhD, The Attitudes of Owners and Veterinary Professionals in the United Kingdom to the Risk of Adverse Events Associated with Non-Steroidal Anti-Inflammatory Drugs to Treat Dogs with Osteoarthritis. What came from this paper is really interesting. And I feel that owners don't actually know and understand this. Most discussions about osteoarthritis in dogs are done using unvalidated assessments with very little veterinary guidance. What does this mean? It means that you take advice from non-professionals, family members, people in the pet shop to guide you managing this disease. And there's very little way to know whether it is making a difference or not. Valid, relevant and practical outcome measures are needed to collect information on which decisions can be based. This means that all of us are using different interventions to improve the comfort and the longevity of our dogs, but are we actually measuring whether this is really happening? How can we be sure that the interventions that we choose, be they drugs, therapies, supplements, or lifestyle changes, are actually working? And sadly, evidence does not exist to guide the majority of decisions that are made. And this evidence that does exist appears to be very poorly disseminated, particularly amongst owners. What does this mean? It means, unfortunately, because osteoarthritis is such a wide and varied disease, there are no definitive treatment protocols. Instead, you act on what you see and look for improvement. And this can be very different depending on your dog, your life, your vet. This leaves people worried that they're not doing the appropriate action. I hope by the end of these 8 modules that you will have a much clearer understanding of the disease, of what is available for you to utilize, and for you to know whether your choice for your dog is working. To highlight this point more, I'm just going to refer to a recent thread on Facebook within a veterinary forum. And it was a vet discussing their own dog and what other vets routinely use to manage arthritis, the pain and the progression. And this here is a list of all of the contributions. Now, as you can see, it's very, very wide-ranging. We have everything from acupuncture to stem cells, myofascial release to Pardale, PRP to TPLO surgeries. There is a huge number of ways that we can actually manage this disease. Yes, it can be confusing, but also it can be exciting, as it gives us many, many avenues to go down and see if they're effective. What we need to say now is there's no definitive prescribed plan. No 2 dogs are the same. When you meet someone in a park and they say, "Oh, my dog has that too," I'm afraid they don't. That dog may be a different age, a different weight, on a different diet, with a different exercise plan, in a different house, with a different degree of the disease, in a different joint. Every dog and their disease are like a snowflake. They're unique, and the management plan for that case will be unique. What we encourage people to do is share ideas and strategies, potential treatment plans, but to also understand the response to the intervention will be different. And when your dog does or doesn't improve, having taken the advice of a fellow dog walker, family friend, or vet, you have to be able to judge whether your dog has improved on that therapy as planned. So what we believe at CAM is very much there's a team approach to managing arthritis successfully. The vet plays a massive role. They are the keel and the frame. They provide the structure. The therapies, the therapists, and all the additionals are the longitudinals. But you guys, I'm afraid you're the planks. You make sure that this boat doesn't sink. Your role is imperative, and hopefully with CAM, we can help you achieve this. You as the owner are spending more time influencing your dog than anybody else. If you are an owner that sees your vet on a routine basis every 3 months, as we suggest, that vet actually only sees your dog for 0.0023% of that dog's life. You are imperative in this management plan. You live, feed, walk, and play with your dog. Your input is very important. And as said, hopefully at the end of this series, you'll be able to make more confident decisions. So when constructing this modular course, it was quite a battle to balance what we want you to know to what you want to know. And this is something that we've learnt by running CAM online for the last 2 years. It is a very fine balance, disseminating important information that to the owner has no point, and battling fitting in amongst what the owner would like to know. So I hope that we do achieve this in the next series. There are going to be things that you think that you didn't need to know. Please bear with, it will make sense at the end. So our aims for you as the owner is to have a thorough understanding of what osteoarthritis is, have realistic expectations regarding the disease and its management, give you a more structured mindset of how the disease presents itself and how we can best manage it. We want to help you tailor your planning to your dog and your life and enable you to be able to repeatedly adapt it as the disease is progressive. We want to ensure that your input is achievable. And this is something that we've been very aware of running the online service. Many owners feel guilt having not been able to implement changes suggested by friends, vets and therapists due to their own lifestyle restrictions. This might be financial, this might be work and time related. So what we hope is to give you guys a lot of ideas that you can put into practice to suit your life. And we really hope that we're going to reduce the worry that comes with any owner and their arthritic dog. So we have a lot to cover. It's going to be fast. This is a diagram of what I hope to cover over the next 8 modules. So let's begin with what is arthritis and what is the fuss. So what is arthritis? There are many forms of arthritis: osteo, rheumatoid, immune-mediated and septic. The one most commonly seen is osteoarthritis, also known as degenerative joint disease or DJD. It is a disease of articulating joints, i.e. moving joints, and it's a very complex disease that involves the whole joint structure. Many people focus on it being a degeneration of the joint cartilage, but that is just one part of a massive problem. The degeneration of the cartilage causes an inflamed synovium. The synovium produces synovial fluid that has a reduced viscosity, so there's less ability to cope with the compression that the joints are put under. The nutritional status of that synovial fluid becomes reduced. The joint space narrows. We have a development of osteophytes, which are little bony outgrowths that impinge upon the joint capsule and interfere with normal joint function. The cartilage continues to degenerate to the point that the underlying subchondral bone is exposed, which is where a lot of the nerve receptors are and where the acute pain of arthritis comes from. We get lots of remodeling of the joint. The joint capsule, which used to be nice and flexible, becomes thickened and restrictive and painful. And associated soft tissue structures, such as ligaments, also suffer. So what happens? Yes, it begins with cartilage degeneration and loss. But over a course of time, we have exposure of the subchondral bone, remodeling of the periarticular bone, intermittent bouts of inflammation, changes to the joint capsule, changes to the surrounding soft tissue. In very simple terms, it's a progressive, painful destruction of a normal joint function. So degenerative joint disease, it starts with cartilage damage, but in honesty, it leads to complete joint failure. Yes, the pain is initially localized to the joint, but over time, this pain spreads. Due to restricted joint function, you have associated soft tissue involvement. What does this mean? It means that if you found using your knee in a weight-bearing or in a movement fashion, you will avoid using it. Those soft tissues that support your knee, the muscles, the ligaments, and the tendons around, begin to degenerate. So you actually lose strength and stability surrounding that joint. So that joint then becomes more painful. because it relied on those soft tissue structures like scaffolding around a building. What happens is you choose to weight shift away from the problem. You bear more weight on other parts of your body that weren't used to carrying this extra weight, and they too then start to have to change, remodel, and this can create compensatory changes and discomfort. And sadly, something that many people overlook is central sensitization. What does this mean? This means the pain that was initially localized to the joint starts to wind up. It isn't something that we habituate to and get used to. Unfortunately, a complex physiological change happens where we start to feel and interpret more pain. So arthritis isn't just a disease of the joint. It involves surrounding soft tissue structures, the rest of the dog's body, and also leads to the dog perceiving more pain in time. It's an extremely complicated disease and still not fully understood. So just to recap, it's initially a disease of articulating joints. This might be elbows, knees, digits, vertebrae. But pain within the joint, adapted use of the joint to minimize the discomfort, causes secondary changes due to compensation that become further sources of pain and poor function. This is very saddening to hear. However, it also gives us opportunities to influence the disease and improve the pain state of that dog. Listen on and I will tell you more. Unfortunately, it also leads to the development of chronic pain, which is an upregulation of the neurological information regarding pain reaching the brain and an increased amount of pain being perceived by the brain. In simple terms, the dog will start to perceive more pain than is actually there. So it's not just arthritis. It requires very clever management, and this management needs to be in place for years. It is not a simple disease, not just a disease of cartilage, not just a disease of the joint. It's not even just a disease of the body, or not just a disease of the dog. It's a consuming, both emotionally and physically debilitating disease for owner and dog. Regularly, people will term it, he's just slowing down. She's just getting old. These are often terminology that owners use that could be describing chronic pain of arthritis. So I've thrown at you quite a miserable outlook of what the disease is, how it's progressive, and how it actually can lead to more pain than should be there. But the good news is, the earlier it is caught, the easier it is to control. Identifying the subtle signs will enable an earlier diagnosis. Understanding the disease will encourage more owners to act. Realising that it's not just a disease of the joint will encourage a multimodal approach to management, which has much improved outcomes. Embracing that the disease is complex opens up so many more opportunities to manage it. We at CAM hope to help you understand and manage this disease so you too will get your dog more years. So that's Module 1, the summary. Arthritis is a disease of joints. All articulating joints can become arthritic. It starts with cartilage damage but progresses to involve the whole joint, the whole limb, the whole body, and the brain. It's a complex disease with no cure. It is a disease that has to be managed, and this can be over years. There are many ways to manage this disease, but sadly it's often misinterpreted as just getting old and just slowing down, and overlooked by the owner as just a normal part of aging, when actually it can be managed for the dog to return to their previous quality of life. Look forward to seeing you in Module 2.